Hi guys, it's John from Crispi. Today we want to cover a topic that we get a lot of questions about. Whether it's phone calls here in our office or people coming up to us at shows, they want to know the difference between leather boots and synthetic boots. Differences in the materials, how they perform, why maybe they should choose one over the other. So we're going to talk about that. To begin with our synthetic boots, we use three primary synthetic materials in construction of these boots. Number one is PU Tech. PU Tech is the material you see on our boots. It has like a diamond tread pattern or a hexagon shape. This PU Tech material is a polyurethane infused Cordura material. Cordura has been used in boots for a long time. It does a really good job. When we infuse it with the polyurethane, it increases the abrasion resistance, it increases the puncture resistance, without really limiting the natural performance you get as far as breathability and the lightweight. Cordura is the other material that we use in boots. Primarily you see it on our boots mostly around like the ankles, up around the top cuff of the boot. And then the last synthetic material that we use is this synthetic micro suede, like what you see on this Brickstall mountain boot. The synthetic micro suede is basically a synthetic leather. It mimics a lot of the performance that you get from leather, but it still is lightweight and fast drying. When we talk about synthetic boots, some of the advantages you get from these synthetic materials are lighter weight, more breathability, and faster drying. Fast drying can be one of the keys when you're talking about a hunt where early season archery type hunts where you get these kind of spot showers that roll through for 30-40 minutes and then it's dry the rest of the day. You don't want a boot to get soaking wet and be wet and heavy for the rest of the day. So anytime you have a boot or a material that dries fast, it's going to be a huge advantage. One of the other advantages we see with synthetic boots is generally they require less maintenance than what leather boots do. We make a spray that goes on all of our synthetic boots that just kind of helps with the waterproofing. Most of the waterproofing from either of our boots, whether they're synthetic or leather, is going to come from the Gore-Tex that's inside. But this spray really just helps kind of condition those synthetic materials and kind of create a barrier on the outside so that they don't absorb more water, and that makes them dry a little bit quicker too. When you start talking about leather boots, we use basically two different styles of leather. One is going to be a nubuck and one is going to be a suede. Our nubuck leather has a couple different appearances. Something like the Nevada or the Guide here has more of a brushed appearance. The Valdez here looks a little smoother. We also use a pre-greased nubuck on some models that looks, it just looks a little bit different. It's darker. All of that's still nubuck leather. It's extremely high quality, very durable, long-lasting leather. The suede that we use on our boots is very noticeable. It's anything you see that has this really brushed finish like on this Summit. Any of our leather is going to do a really good job. Some of the advantages you get from leather boots are going to be, number one, durability. A leather boot is always going to outlast a synthetic boot. You also get more support and more protection out of a leather boot generally than you will out of a synthetic boot. The downside to leather really is the conditioning. It does need to be taken care of, and it requires more of an effort from you to make sure that you're cleaning it, conditioning it properly, and taking care of it. If you don't go through those steps with your leather boots, they're never going to perform as well or last as long as what they could if you did take on that responsibility and make sure that you keep them conditioned and cleaned. When we start talking about maybe what types of hunts you should use a synthetic boot for or what types of boots or hunts you should use a leather boot for, we can really get kind of into the weeds and it can get kind of tricky. A couple of the general rules of thumb that I like to use and that we talk about here a lot in our office is if you're the type of guy that's going to have one pair of boots and you're going to do every type of hunt in your one pair of boots, I would strongly suggest you go with a leather boot. Buy a leather boot, buy our conditioning cream, take care of it. It's probably going to perform fairly well for you across a wide spectrum of hunts, terrains, and conditions. When you start talking synthetic boots, generally I like to look at these as more hunt-specific type models. You want a lighter weight, breathable, early season boot, look at a synthetic boot. You're going on a very specific type of hunt where you want to make sure that it's breathable, it dries fast, you might want to look at a synthetic boot. Generally, that rule of thumb of one boot being a leather boot that's going to be more versatile, and maybe a more hunt-specific boot being a synthetic boot is a good way to look at it. There's always going to be trade-offs to that. There's always going to be certain guys that like synthetic boots for things and leather boots for other things. There's not really a right or wrong answer. Hopefully this answered some of your questions about leather boots versus synthetic boots and the materials that we use. If you do have any other questions, we always like getting phone calls or come see us at a show, and we're happy to chat with you and try to figure out what's going to work perfect for you and the hunts that you have planned. Thanks.